All right. So, Michael, obviously, it took a long time. It took a while. We are finally here. You have a date, you and Conor McGregor, to fight. I'm sure it was a frustrating process for you. You see you shaking your head just a little bit. What was this like?
Yeah, honestly, it's really funny how it felt really, really, really long, and it was very long. I journaled a lot. I could probably write a book about just the process, right? But now that we're here and the fight getting announced on April 13th, which is basically like, it was close. It wasn't like, hey, we got it announced and then we got to wait 6 months for it. Now we're 59 days away as we're recording this right now. Um, and honestly, it was there's so many positives that I can take from it. Yeah, but there was days where it was tougher than I thought it was going to be. There was days that I never thought about throwing in the towel, never thought about changing direction. I never once was offered another fight from the UFC. So we knew it's the fight that the UFC wanted, for a lot of different reasons. Me versus Connor is a huge fight. Me and Connor doing the Ultimate Fighter. If we don't fight at the end, the Ultimate Fighter is kind of a worthless competition, right? So it was tough, but I got to spend more time with my family than I ever have. I did a lot of business stuff outside of fighting, raised a ton of money for charity, philanthropy. I was busy. I kept myself busy. I got the most amazing supportive wife. So she was coaching me through it as well. So tough days, but the year and a half or the days felt, I guess, very, very long, but the year and a half or so looking back feels pretty short. So here we are.
Yeah, now, I mean, obviously, you said you kind of journaled about this a lot, and we don't have to go into the book that you're going to write on that. But
Yeah.
as far as, just the fact that it took this long, did you ever doubt his commitment to following through with the fight? Because he's got a lot going on too.
He does. Honestly, no, I didn't. I mean, I know enough about Connor, and the real true MMA fans should know enough about Connor to know that, yeah, of course, there's going to be a time at some point that Connor steps away from the sport. But him breaking his leg and everybody telling him he wasn't going to come back, that wasn't going to be the scenario. That wasn't going to be how Connor's MMA story ends. And as rich and famous and party animal and all this, add the next adjective that people like to say about Connor. One thing you can never take away from the man is he's a competitor. Another thing you can never take away from him is his romance, and how much he loves the sport of mixed martial arts. And truly, I think how appreciative he is of the sport of mixed martial arts. Without mixed martial arts, without the UFC, without John Kavanaugh, without SBG, and the list goes on and on. Without those things, Conor McGregor is a nobody on the dole back in Ireland where he started, right? And I don't say that in a mean way. It's like I think that's how he sees it, right? So I knew he was going to come back. I was getting enough inside information behind the scenes, behind closed doors from the UFC that he was coming back. It was just going to take a little bit of time, and I think patience is the most undervalued asset of a human being, of the human existence. And people can say what they want about me, but all I did was practice patience, and it worked out.
Sure, sure. Now, obviously, going back a year now, you guys did spend a little bit of time filming The Ultimate Fighter, like you mentioned. What did you come away with that from that experience with him? You like the guy, dislike, you obviously respect him, at least certain elements of him. But like, what's your feeling on him?
Tons of respect, man. I mean, you can't. I mean, anybody who does what we do, anybody who makes the sacrifices that we make, and the levels that Connor has climbed on a world stage, you have to respect it. Um, do I think I'm going to beat him? Absolutely. Do I think I'm a better fighter than him? Absolutely. All the things as an athlete, of course. But the biggest thing that I got out of that show, out of that experience, was being around him. And I think he knows without a shadow of a doubt that I am very confident in myself. I am confident in the man that I am. I am confident on my own 2 feet. And he can say what he wants to say. He can try to rattle me. He can try to shake me. He can try to big dog me. He can try to big brother me. He can try to do all the things that Connor is so good at. And he could tell that it wasn't going to shake me. And I just, I'm supposed to be here. I was born for a time such as this. And I think he's got respect for me and I got respect for him. And obviously it was a competition. I wanted to go into that to Ultimate Fighter beating Connor. But then once I got there, it wasn't even about Connor anymore. It was more about my 8 guys and being a little piece of their journey. And Team Chandler did very, very well. Won the show, won almost every single fight, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the experience that I had there. But yeah, ultimately, I got a ton of respect for him, but it's not going to stop me from knocking him out in the first 2 rounds on June 29th.
And obviously you are, you believe you're going to win. You want to win. Clearly, that's your motivation. But for let's say for a casual viewer who is not necessarily just like Conor McGregor's got to get me into it or Michael Chandler's got to get me into it. What are the stakes of this fight? Like what is it that's coming out of this fight once it's done?
Man, there's been a lot of big time stories in mixed martial arts. There's been a lot of storylines, a lot of rivalries, a lot of action. The UFC, it was actually a really great quote. It was a UFC 300. Dana White was like, "I'm in the business of making oh shit moments," right? Like that was his. It's a really cool line, and it is true, right? Like that's what we do. But this fight itself, I mean, you have to buy this pay-per-view because this could be the last time that you ever see Conor McGregor fight. I truly believe what I'm going to do to him on June 29th is going to warrant and merit him never stepping back into the octagon. With that being said, Conor might be able to pull off the greatest comeback in combat sports history. He called it, self-proclaimed by him. The guy did snap his leg. It was a very gruesome injury. Many people wrote him off. I never did, but I thought, I thought it was going to be a hard road to recovery and coming back to get to this moment. So there's a chance that we see the greatest comeback in combat sports history. His opponent is arguably the most exciting guy to ever set foot in the UFC octagon. What I have done, my strength of schedule, my fights of the nights, my fights of the years, my performance bonuses, what I have made in my masterpiece that I've been painting over the last couple of years with the UFC. It is two of the most explosive, exciting guys, two of the most intriguing guys, and possibly the greatest comeback in combat sports history, or Conor McGregor's last fight, last time we ever see him compete in mixed martial arts.
Interesting. I'm curious too because obviously you were holding out for this fight. There were no other options for you. It's not because, or is it because this could be potentially your swan song too, or do you see more things coming for yourself?
I see a lot more coming for me. It's a blessing to be in this position. The realm at which I am going to be living in after this fight, when it comes to notoriety and platform and everything that I ever wanted to create with this sport. Um, Mixed martial artists get into the sport of mixed martial arts for a couple of reasons. They want the biggest fights under the brightest lights against the biggest names, the highest stakes, and the biggest platform. It doesn't get bigger than June 29th. So I've been dreaming of this moment since 2009 when I first fought my first fight down in Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. And as a competitor who dedicated his life to hand combat in the sport of wrestling as a freshman in high school, I dreamed of these moments. So many times I never thought I was going to amount to anything, battling inner demons, battling the little guy from the little town who was taught to do little things, that little guy inside my mind. And I've built this and I've earned this. So I believe this is just another rung that I'm climbing to. And once I get there, it's continuing to be off to the races. I got a lot of tread left on this tire. I still think I'm going to wear UFC gold by the time I'm done fighting. I feel as young as ever. I feel as great as ever. And that's not just something, it's something that a lot of fighters say. But I truly do believe that. And with the training camp that we're going to put together, with the performance that we're going to put together, the sky is the limit after this win on June 29th.
Sure. You posted a photo recently. You and it was plotting with Machine Gun Kelly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Clear nod to Connor and MGK having that history, the VMAs
Yeah.
3 years ago. They had that whole thing. How did this come together? I mean, you and MGK don't seem like a natural pair.
We're not. We are not. But we ran into each other stagecoach. Man, I mean, I've met so many people in my life, and I believe that we're all created in the image of an almighty God, and we are all so similar. And even in our greatest dissimilarities, we have so many similarities, and we're all just spinning around on this earth for a short amount of time, as long as we get to, right? So to take the opportunity to meet him, and yeah, obviously it was a picture because it was a nod at Connor and their history, and it's people love to make things of it, right? And either way, man, he's an artist. We are artists of the mixed martial fashion, right? So it came together at Stagecoach last weekend, kind of my last hoorah before I went into training camp. So that was funny too. I got a picture with Post Malone too, but I didn't post it. Um, so yeah, obviously him and Post Malone are friends, and it was actually funny because I was like, I want to take a photo with you, and he's like, "You're not going to say anything mean about Connor, are you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to say anything mean about Connor." So it's fun.
I see. I see. So he didn't have anything to say about Connor otherwise then.
He might have. He might have, but we'll keep that between us, right? Yeah,
Fair enough.
Megan Fox was there as well. So yeah, we had a little chat. And either way, man, I'm not I really don't look at this sport like I want to hurt anybody. Like I'm like I got like I don't want a rivalry a lot of times. I mean, I want the rivalry that I want to go out there and absolutely dismantle him because this is a sport. But yeah, ultimately get the people talking, get the buzz going, man. There's so many other things. We could not do any press, do any create any storylines, do post any pictures with MGKs or enemies or whatever. And on June 29th, the whole world's going to be watching because this fight has all the makings of a blockbuster.
Sure, sure. Now, there's an element of this fight that has kind of been talked about, and now we have it set, right? It's a welterweight fight, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They he's put on a lot of size, let's say, especially from his time as a featherweight, but realistically, even between now and when he got hurt against Poirier those couple times, he looks larger. But he's someone who's kind of predicated on size, or excuse me, speed being a big weapon of his. How do you think the kind of the added size he might have may affect this fight and affect his performance against you?
That's one thing I have said and I've pointed out. I mean, it's one thing to go up one weight class, but really to put on enough size to go up two weight classes, it changes things, right? The way that you're able to move, the way that you're able to create angles, your speed. Maybe you gain some power, maybe you gain some strength, but are those the things that you need in your repertoire, in your toolbox to be successful on fight night? It remains to be seen. But also as an athlete, I know going into training camp, out of training camp, size, putting on muscle, gaining fat, losing fat, nutrition, all of these different things. He's been doing it for such a long time. I've been doing it for such a long time. You're very surprised sometimes at how quickly it really is like riding a bicycle. You hop on a bike and you haven't ridden a bicycle in 5 years, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm doing wheelies and I can do a bunny hop, and you get back into training camp, get your feet back underneath you, get your confidence kind of back, and you're in that training camp. And that's what's exciting, man. I've been a fighter now for 16 years, or whatever it's been. And every single time there's still that fear when you go into a training camp. You're like, well, maybe I've lost it. I haven't worked out enough or haven't worked on this enough. And all of a sudden, 1 or 2 weeks in, it's funny. I send a text to my wife all the time and be like, hey, I still got it, because it's like, you got the little bit of nerves. How's it going to work out? How am I going to perform? How am I good anymore? Right. And then before you know it, 2 days in, you're like, dang, dude, now I remember I'm good at this sport. So I think, I think Connor's training hard. I think it sounds like he's taking it seriously. He's talked about not drinking anymore. He's talked about being in full camp. He's got an octagon in his house or his backyard or wherever the heck he is, and he's taking it seriously. I'm taking it seriously, and I think he will improvise, adapt, and overcome to show up on fight night. And then it remains to be seen who gets their hand raised.
Now, obviously, you've mentioned before, you see it pretty much inside of 10 minutes, you're giving yourself to get that knockout, right? When you envision the way this fight goes, what is it how do you see it playing out?
Man, my picture is very similar to how I fight in a lot of different in all my fights, right? Every single time I come in step into the UFC octagon, I try to be a presence. I try to get in your face from the first exchange. I want to make you second guess yourself, and that's going to be no different with Connor. Within the first exchange, he second guesses himself. He starts getting on his back foot. He starts becoming the hunted when he wants to be the hunter, and that's going to start planting seeds of doubt. Then the heart rate raises, cardio starts going down. By the end of the first round, he's going to walk back to his stool, huffing and puffing with seeds of doubt planted. Second round, I finish him off and usher him toward the exit sign.
Now, you actually, if I understand correctly, you beat Connor to the punch as an actor, right? You were in a movie in 2017 called Be Afraid, is that right?
Be afraid. Yeah, I played a town bully. I played a town bully. Had a few lines, just a few lines.
Okay, okay. So Honestly, similar vein to Connor's role. I don't know if you saw Roadhouse, but he's a bit of a bully too. He's just to a higher degree.
Yeah.
Did you see the movie? Did you have any thoughts?
I've not seen the movie yet. I think now with Connor being my opponent, I think it's more mental. It's just like, hey, Jake Gyllenhaal's a friend of mine. I actually did a scene with Jake Gyllenhaal in the Dominican Republic on Roadhouse, but I really was just a guy that he knocked out for a highlight that they're gonna, use in his little highlight package leading up to his fight with Jay Heron or whatever the guy's name was in the actual movie. But I think watching a movie with my opponent, it just seems weird to me right now, honestly. If I wasn't in training camp, wasn't fighting him, if it came out 2 years from now, I would have already watched it by now. So that's no disrespect to the movie. I've heard great reviews from it, heard some other people. Everybody has opinions that it wasn't that great, but from everything that I have seen, it looks like it was a great movie. And kudos to Connor on his big role in it. And if there's a Roadhouse 2, maybe I'll be the villain. We'll see.
Now you're talking about before, like kind of getting back into long layoffs and things like that, and how do we have it after this fight? Because this is the biggest layoff of your career by far. You never gone a calendar year without a fight. Do you want to get back to that busier schedule, 2 to 3 fights a year?
I do. I think the realm at which I fight in, I have fought a top five guy every single fight in the UFC. When you're one of the top guys, you know, it's always two fights a year, maybe two and a half, three, right? When you start averaging all the months. I don't see myself taking a huge layoff. I think by the end of the year, I think with what I do June 29th, some opportunities are going to open. The sport moves fast. It's the what have you done for me lately business. When I reintroduce myself back into the sport of mixed martial arts, the UFC, Dana, Hunter Campbell, they're going to take a look at it and say, okay, this guy's got some big fights on his horizon, and I'm going to tell him, hey, yeah, we need only big fights from here on out. BMF belt, lightweight title, welterweight title, a welterweight number one contender fight. Where can we be? I by no means have a problem, fighting at 170 if I want to. So we'll see what happens. I don't see myself taking much of a layoff. I want to keep spinning these tires and get the most out of this body and this career that I can.
You just turned 38, and happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
We're
Thank you.
we're both 38 now, and I think we both understand that as you get older, things change. You got to treat your body a little bit differently. What are you doing differently now in training that you weren't doing when you were younger? Like, how does it look different?
Yeah, honestly, man, people are always kind of baffled when I tell them I'm 38 years old. I think part of it is I came into the UFC at 34, so everybody thought I was probably in my 20s and didn't really check my birth date, check my Wikipedia page. So, I think part of it is that, but part of it is I think I do look younger because I've taken care of my body, and I've as soon as I got into the sport, I started taking things a little bit different from a recovery standpoint because I wasn't constantly on the grind. In wrestling, you're constantly on the grind, 350 days a year. You're working out one time a day, if not two times a day, the majority of your life. Then when you get into mixed martial arts, you get these lulls where you could go back and forth into camp, out of camp. Um, but I've always stayed in the gym. I take body work very seriously. Every single week, I have massage therapy, body work, stretching. I'm always on my roller. I've got cold plunge. I've got sauna. I got hot tub. I've got all of the things, if you will, right? So it sounds crazy, but man, I still feel like I'm 25 years old. I would argue now I feel better than I did when I was at 25 years old because of my diligence to my recovery. But the training has changed a little bit. Like even right now, kind of at the very beginning of training camp, normally I'm running through walls and redlining nonstop, whereas I've grown accustomed to becoming more of a veteran when it comes to, hey, you know what? I don't feel like I'm in shape right now. I don't feel like I'm in fight shape, but it's okay. Let's do enough today to go up one more ladder, one more rung, and take one more step forward. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to be in phenomenal shape. And then we're going to really dial in the game plan. So if anything, I've shown myself more grace for not being in tip top shape and realizing that not being in tip top shape 8 weeks before the fight is an okay thing. And this is a long journey and process leading up to June 29th.
Sure, sure. And the last question I have for you is, and obviously you've got a lot more things in mind for this sport. You're not looking to get anywhere, but have you thought about kind of what might be in your future? It seems like you've got kind of a lot of pathways if you wanted to, maybe coaching, acting if you felt like going down that route, like you mentioned before. Even politics seems like something that might interest you. Do any of those things intrigue you?
Politics, I'm not allowed to do. My wife said I'm not going to be married to a politician, and my wife gives me, she's like, hey, you can do whatever you want, okay? Just you can't go into politics. And I'm like, that's fine. I got political friends, but not myself getting into politics. I don't see myself coaching. I think I would be a phenomenal coach. I saw that on The Ultimate Fighter, but I always say like, hey, if I was making Bill Belichick money, I would probably be coaching, or maybe be coaching, but that's just not there in that regard. And obviously, honestly, no disrespect to the younger generation, but I've left my family enough, made enough sacrifices down here away from my family for my own career, let alone traveling around the world, being away from my family for somebody else's career. But really, man, I see myself speaking on stages, writing books, being on camera, whether it be acting in the movies, or doing shows. And I got some great agents who are working on that stuff right now. And after this fight, the star will be very bright. So we'll take a lot of opportunities and take the things that make the most sense, and make the biggest impact that we can. Man, I've been truly blessed to. I never thought I would be here, and it's about to get even crazier. And we will try to stay humble with it and keep on climbing.